Hey guys, I'm Nathan with Seek Outside, and we're going to talk about how to pitch a teepee. We'll cover how to set your teepee up the right way, as well as how to identify problems with your pitch and fix those. We're also going to cover flexi pitch, the ventilation pitch, the snow shedding pitch, and various challenging pitches such as setting up on steep or uneven ground, or if you have a tree or root or rock in the way, how you can get around those and make it work. So let's get to it. So the first step in pitching your teepee is in site selection and doing a little bit of planning. Now, I've found that I generally have one really good spot to put my sleeping pad, so I kind of plan around that, where I want my sleeping area to be. And when you know where your sleeping area is going to be, you can pretty well figure out where the pole needs to go, and then you know which way you want to enter and exit the tent from. You know where your door wants to go. I've got everything that I need right now, as long as I have a footprint that is clear in a big enough size to actually pitch the tent. So the second step in pitching your tent deals with the radius method. And to understand this fully, we're going to do a little bit of homework. So our teepees really have three different types of stakes with different levels of stretch in the fabric above the stake. The first of the three will be the zipper stakes. Now our zippers are overbuilt, they're full length, they're very strong, and they have very, very little stretch to them. The second type are the main seam stakes. The main seams are flat-felled and double-stitched, so these seams will have some stretch, but not a lot. The third type is the mid-panel stakes. And since there's no seam in the fabric above these, they have the most stretch of the three types. The reason I'm walking you through this is because you can replace the word stretch with pitch forgiveness in your mind. So if you think about it, the distance between the two doors has to be almost exactly right, because there is no forgiveness on that number. There's no fudge factor. With the main seams, you have some forgiveness, and with the mid-panel seams, you have quite a bit of forgiveness. So what this means is, in pitching the teepee, you start right, end right. If you start with the correct diameter between the two doors, you're going to end with a properly pitched teepee. So this begs the question, how do you get the correct radius between the two doors? I'm not packing a tape measure in on a backpack trip. Well, there's a few methods, and I'll walk through those. So this is the stake bag for the 12 person that I am just about to pitch, and I've got a length of cord in here. This is very lightweight, very bright, very reflective, so I don't lose it. I'm prone to losing things. And this length of cord is 9 feet 5 inches long. The reason it is 9 feet 5 inches long is because that is half the diameter of a 12 person teepee, which is 18 feet 10 inches. So what I can do is take this length of cord, which weighs a ½ ounce, and put a stake in the middle of my footprint where I want the pole to go. I can pull off of that stake and set my first door stake, and then pull a back line and set my second door stake. So the second radius method that I'll cover is marking your pole. And what you do here is start on the ground end of the pole, measure up 9 feet 5 inches. Since this is a 12 person, that'll be different for every tent. And I just put a black Sharpie mark. You can use a paint marker. On carbon poles, a silver Sharpie works well. And the key to this is to make sure the pole is fully extended when you do this, because if you change the length of the pole, the length of your mark will change as well. So again, you set a stake in the middle of the footprint where you want the pole to go. I'll butt the end of the pole up against that, and then come out and use my mark to set my first stake. And then go to the other side. Sight down the pole, line up that other stake, and set my second stake. The third method that I'm going to cover is the setback method. And this actually uses the tent canopy itself. This may be the fastest method. It's also the most variable and the most prone to error because of inherent stretch in the canopy. You need to stretch the canopy the same every time. So a quick tip for you before we get too far into this. These are the stakes that we send out with most of our tents. And these are the stake loops that we have on most of our teepees. You can see that one of these is a lot bigger than the other one. And we make these stake loops out of webbing, and they're oversized. They're very durable, very beefy. We do that for a reason, and that is you can cut a stake from a 2-foot limb, and if you're on a float trip on a gravel bar in Alaska, you can really firm up your pitch by doing that. But it does leave some wiggle room between our normal stakes and these stake loops. So what you can do is simply put a twist in the stake loop, and that will completely firm that stake loop up on that stake and keep it from popping off. So I will start with the upwind door stake. So to use the setback method, I'm going to pull the canopy out taut but not stretched. Basically, you stretch it out and then let it lay. And then I know that my guy out is 24 inches from my stake loop. So I'm going to use that measurement, fold my stake loop up. That puts me at 48 inches. And I know that the setback for a 12 person is about 54 inches or thereabouts. So using the setback method, I can very quickly and easily guesstimate the distance between the two doors. So once we have got the radius set, I'm going to hook the second door on its stake. And then I'll make sure that I don't lose my stakes or my rock or hammer I'm using to set them. And I'm going to spread the fabric of the canopy out in a semicircular pattern all the way around. Now that the canopy is spread out, I'm just going to go around and put some stakes in to hold tension, but I don't want to set these for good because I very likely will have to move some of them. So I'm only going to put them in about halfway, just enough to hold some tension. And I'm staking the main seams here. I'm not doing anything with the mid panel seams at this point. Okay, now I've got the tent staked in a rough circle. It's not perfect, but I've got pretty good tension between the stakes. So now's the time to get the pole up. So another tip for you guys, these big tents are tall. This one's gonna be 9'6" when it's up. I'm 6'3", but I can't reach all the way to the top of a 12 person to open the stove jack after it's already up. So make sure the stove jack is the way you want it before you put it up. Make sure the vent is open if you want it open. And make sure that you don't unzip the tent all the way to the top of the zipper unless you tie some cordage onto it, because you won't be able to reach that zipper pull. Now that we're standing, I will close the door and assess the tent. So guys, you can probably tell in the background, the pitch does not look very good at this point, and that's okay. Let's take a walk around it and I'll show you some of the problems I see. So you can see I have a little bit of tension issues here, but the real problem is going to be these 3 stakes over here. Now you can tell that my footprint is already pretty big here, but I've got a major tension gap here. So what I'll probably do to alleviate this is to take this tight seam and move it in a bit, and that will give me a little bit of wiggle room and play over here, and then I can move these out some. The downhill side of the tent doesn't look that bad. I've got some tension issue here. That stake needs to come out. But around towards the front, they actually look pretty good. So I'll pull this overly tight stake, move it a few inches, and that gives me some play on these uphill seams. I don't have enough slack on that seam to pull it out where I need it to. So again, I'll go to the neighboring seam, move it a few inches in. That'll give me the ability to move this one out. Again, I'm not happy with the tension there, so I'm going to move this one just a hair, just a couple inches. That will allow me to get this seam tension the way that I want it. So if you'll notice, I've still got a little bit of a bell shape on these uphill seams. And to be honest, it's going to be hard for me to get rid of all of it. I can play with this some more and try to clean it up. But truth be told, there's probably 6 to 8 inches of difference in slope between the uphill and the downhill side. And that can just be a little hard to correct. So the problem with the bell shape is it eats into your interior space. And another way to deal with this and alleviate that problem is just to use guy outs. If I use a guy out here, I'm effectively sucking up this fabric here and steepening that wall. But then the guy out functions here all the way to the top, and it evens out that seam tension and helps get rid of that bell shape. So these guy outs can be really useful to use when you're pitching on slopes. So to make guy lines, what I like to use is this Atwood cordage that we sell. It's reflective and bright orange. You can sit in a headlamp. There's other things that you can use. Lawson Equipment sells glow wire, which is really good. I recommend it. But all I do is on the stake end, I just tie an overhand loop. You can use a double overhand. There's a lot of knots that you can use for this, and they all work. I've never had a single overhand slip on them in there. Super easy to tie, so that's why I use them. And this is my stake end. On the working end, I'll use a taut line hitch through the guy out loop. And I'll show you a close-up of how I rig that. So to rig the guy line, I just come through the guy out loop and then tie a taut line hitch. What it does a very, very good job of is making a slip loop that is adjustable and it won't slip. So it just makes your guy line fully adjustable for tension very quickly and easily, and it won't slip. Another tip in rigging guy lines is that you can use a redirect to change the angle of the pull. That really helps to open up some interior space. So this tent will have a bit of stretch to it because sil nylon does have a little bit of stretch. So at this point, what I will do is to lengthen the pole, and when I put the pole back up, that will pull tension on the entire tent canopy. So guys, there you have it. It's a properly pitched teepee. It is not a perfectly pitched teepee. I don't claim that. They rarely are, but this one looks very good, very workable. And from here, if I was expecting very bad weather, I would go in and fill in the midpoint stake loops. You can also use the midpoint stake loops to take up some extra slack in the canopy if you have some seam tension issues. But to be honest, I rarely use the midpoint stake loops. At this point, you can also fill in with more guy outs if you need to take up some slack on an uphill slope or something along those lines. All right guys, so we've covered the regular pitch, and now we're going to move on to some of the alternatives. The first one that I'll go over is Flexi pitch. Flexi pitch basically means I'm going to drop the pole down and take the bottom 24 inches of canopy and fold it under, and then stake the tent out to the guy out loops. Now, quick pro tip here, this is why we make our guy out loops as strong as our stake loops, so that you are able to do this. At times, if you're in a brushy area or a really tight spot and you're limited for space, This will allow you to get the tent in and up where otherwise you wouldn't be able to. So to get Flexi pitch started, I'm actually going to remove a section from the pole, and then I'm going to fold the canopy under and stake out the guy out loops. So let's get started with that. All right guys, so as you can see, I've got the tent Flexi pitched behind me. This is a really good pitch to know because it can help you out in a tight spot. All right guys, so the next pitch I'm going to show you is the snow shedding pitch. Basically that is a taller, steeper teepee with a drop at the bottom that will allow snow to slide off and then collect, so you don't have to shovel it or maintain the tent quite as much in those heavier snow events. To achieve the snow shedding pitch, I'm going to raise the pole up higher than it would normally be. And to do this on the full perimeter, I've got to attach guy out lines to all 10 guy out points, although you can do this on part of the tent if you need to. As you can see behind me, I've got the teepee pitched in the snow shedding pitch. Now it is windy today, and I did not take the time to stake out the bottom perimeter, but you should do that. The benefit of this pitch is that the snow will slide off of the upper section and then drop and collect at the bottom. And that means that you don't have to shovel or maintain the canopy as often as you would if you were pitched normally. This is really the most extreme example of using guy lines, so I'll take this as an opportunity to talk about other challenging pitches. Let's say that you have a root or a rock or tree or some obstacle precisely where you need to put a tent stake. And because of the topography, you can't really adjust around that. Well, by using the guy lines in this manner and slackening the bottom of the teepee, you can get around a lot of different obstacles. You can also use a variation of this method to correct for severe slopes. So if I was on a severe slope here, the uphill half of the tent would be slack and the downhill side of the tent would be very taut. By pitching the tent on the uphill side using the guy outs, I can correct nearly a 2-foot differential in slope between the top half and the bottom half of the tent. The final pitch I'm going to cover is the ventilation pitch, and you can do this over part of the shelter or the entire shelter, and it functions very similarly to this, except I'm going to connect stake loop extensions or shelter gatekeeper straps or line lock extensions directly to the stake loops and then pitch the entire tent up so that I can get a draft underneath the sod skirt. So I've rigged this stake loop extensions very similarly to how I rigged my guy lines, and that is by taking the working end of the line through the loop and then finishing it with a taut line hitch. And that makes for an adjustable loop that allows you to very quickly and easily change tension on the canopy. A couple of other solutions that we do sell are a line lock extension kit and shelter gatekeeper straps. So I'll run through these really quickly. The line lock extension kit consists of 2 cords, a short and a long. You run the short cord through the back of the line lock, and then I finish it with an overhand loop. There are different knots that you can use for the course. This is just convenient for me. Then I use a lark's head or cow hitch through the stake loop. That attaches the line lock securely to the stake loop. Then you simply run the long piece of cordage up through the line lock and then down from the top to the bottom, and then connect the cordage to your stake and pull the tag end of the line to tension. So the line lock extension kit is lightweight. You can leave it on your tent full time and it doesn't add much weight. It also has a very minimal amount of rigging to get this to work. The next solution I'll show you is the Shelter Gatekeeper strap. And this borrows Gatekeepers from our backpack line. And we made these just because they're just so handy and easy to use. So basically you take one of the Gatekeepers and clip it onto the stake loop. There's a loop sewn in the middle of the Shelter Gatekeeper strap. That goes around your stake. And then you simply pull the tag end to tension. So the advantage of the Shelter Gatekeeper strap is you can connect one end to the canopy, and then you've got a free end that you can connect to a nest. And that allows you to pitch the canopy up off the ground and the nest to the ground so that you get maximum ventilation with full bug protection. Guys, I really hope that you found this video helpful. I hope that it will help you use our products to their fullest. And maybe the things that I've presented here will give you some ideas on fixes that you can use in the field in the future. You can find all of our tents and teepees on our website, along with wood stoves and backpacks and a lot of other gear that will help you to seek outside.